What if a child's whisper could shatter the walls of a broken heart? In a vibrant city plaza, where hope and heartbreak danced in the shadows, Leandro Salazar, a millionaire rich in gold but poor in joy, met Tomas, a tattered boy with nothing but a dream that burned brighter than the sun. "Señor, I can make your daughter walk again," he vowed, his small voice carrying a promise that defied all reason. Could this be the miracle to rewrite their fates? Grab a friend, hit subscribe, and share this journey. Let's discover if love and courage can triumph where wealth has failed. In the heart of a sprawling city, where glass towers kissed the sky and dreams often drowned in the noise, Leandro Salazar stood as a man who had conquered everything except his own heart. A millionaire draped in tailored suits and surrounded by opulence, Leandro's world was a fortress of wealth, yet it crumbled under the weight of a single tragedy. His daughter, Isabella, a radiant 9-year-old, with curls that danced like sunlight, had once filled his days with laughter. 2 years ago, a car accident stole her ability to walk, chaining her to a wheelchair and her father to an unshakable guilt. Every specialist, every treatment, every dollar spent brought the same verdict. Isabella might never walk again. Leandro, who could buy islands and bend empires, was powerless to restore the skip in his little girl's step. Each night he sat by her bedside, her small hand in his, whispering apologies to a God he wasn't sure he believed in. The city plaza, a mosaic of life, pulsed with vendors hawking flowers, musicians strumming guitars, and children chasing pigeons under the golden afternoon sun. It was here, amid the chaos of ordinary days, that Leandro's polished world collided with one he barely noticed. Tomas, an 8-year-old boy with dirt-smudged cheeks and bare feet toughened by the streets, weaved through the crowd, his tattered shirt flapping like a flag of resilience. Orphaned and homeless, Tomas owned nothing but a quiet confidence that seemed to glow from within. He survived on scraps and small kindnesses, yet his eyes carried a fire that could pierce the hardest hearts. No one knew where he came from, but everyone in the plaza knew his smile, a beacon of hope in a world that often looked away. Leandro, lost in thought as he pushed Isabella's wheelchair through the plaza, barely noticed the boy at first. Isabella, her face bright despite her stillness, tossed a coin to a street performer, her giggle a fleeting melody. Tomas, watching from a distance, saw something in the girl's eyes, a spark that mirrored his own. Approaching with a boldness that belied his ragged appearance, he stopped before Leandro, his small frame dwarfed by the towering man. The millionaire frowned, expecting a plea for coins. Instead, Tomas looked straight into his eyes, unflinching, and spoke words that hung in the air like a dare. "Señor, I can make your daughter walk again," he said, his voice steady, his gaze unwavering. Those words, absurd yet piercing, cracked open a door to a journey no one could have imagined, a story of faith, sacrifice, and miracles waiting to unfold. Leandro Salazar's life was a gilded cage, each day a reminder of his failure as a father. For 2 years he had scoured the globe for a cure for his daughter Isabella, whose legs had gone silent after a cruel twist of fate in a car accident. The finest doctors, cutting-edge therapies, experimental trials. Leandro's wealth opened every door, but none led to hope. In his penthouse office, surrounded by awards and marble, he stared at medical reports that mocked his power. Isabella, his radiant girl, was slipping further into a quiet sorrow, and no amount of money could buy back the light in her eyes. Nights were the hardest. Leandro would sit by her bed, watching her sleep, her small chest rising and falling, and whisper promises he feared he could never keep. Isabella, only 9, carried a weight no child should bear. Once a whirlwind of giggles chasing butterflies in the garden, she now sat in her wheelchair, clutching a threadbare teddy bear named Coco. Her dreams of dancing, of running through fields, had faded like old photographs. She smiled for her father, but it was a fragile mask. At the plaza, where other children darted and played, her eyes lingered on their carefree steps, her fingers tightening around Coco's worn paw. "I'm okay, Papa," she'd say, but her voice trembled heavy with a resignation that broke Leandro's heart anew each day. She had stopped asking if she'd walk again, as if hope itself had become too heavy to carry. In the bustling city plaza, where life thrummed with color and chaos, a small figure emerged from the crowd, Tomás, the barefoot boy with eyes that held a quiet storm. He had seen Isabella's fleeting smile, noticed the way Leandro's shoulders sagged under invisible burdens. Approaching them, his tattered shirt flapping, Tomás stood before the millionaire with a boldness that silenced the noise around them. "Señor, I can make your daughter walk again," he said, his voice clear, unshaken. Leandro froze, his first instinct to dismiss the boy as a dreamer or a fraud. A street kid, no older than Isabella, with no home, no credentials. What could he possibly offer that the world's best couldn't? "Give me a chance," Tomás pressed, his gaze locked on Leandro's, unwavering as if he could see the man's soul. Skepticism curled Leandro's lips into a bitter scoff. "You? What do you know of miracles?" he snapped, waving a hand to shoo the boy away. Yet something in Tomás's eyes, a flicker of unshakable belief, planted a seed of doubt in Leandro's resolve. The boy didn't flinch, didn't beg. He simply stood there, small but unyielding, his silence louder than the plaza's clamor. Isabella, watching from her wheelchair, tilted her head, her curiosity stirring for the first time in months. "Why do you think you can help me?" she asked softly, her voice a fragile thread. Tomás knelt beside her, his smile warm as the sun. "Because I know what it's like to lose something," he said, "and I know how to fight to get it back." His words, simple yet profound, hung in the air, a challenge to Leandro's despair and a spark to Isabella's faded hope. In that moment, the millionaire felt the weight of a choice: turn away or dare to believe in a boy who had nothing but a promise that felt too big for the world. Against his better judgment, Leandro allowed Tomás to visit Isabella at their sprawling estate, his skepticism warring with a desperate flicker of hope. The boy arrived barefoot as always, carrying nothing but a small cloth pouch that jingled softly. In the garden, under a canopy of jacaranda trees, Tomás knelt beside Isabella's wheelchair, his presence as unassuming as the breeze. "Señorita," he said, his voice warm, "today we start dreaming with our hearts." From his pouch he pulled a smooth river stone, its surface worn by time, and placed it in her small hand. "Close your eyes," he whispered, "feel the stone. Imagine you're walking through a field, the grass tickling your feet, the wind playing with your hair." Isabella hesitated, her fingers tracing the stone's curve, then obeyed. For the first time in years, a genuine smile broke across her face, soft but radiant, as if she could feel the earth beneath her once more. Tomás's methods were unlike anything Leandro had seen. No machines, no sterile clinics, just twigs, stones, and stories. He wove tales of brave children who conquered mountains, guiding Isabella to visualize herself strong, free, her legs carrying her toward the horizon. Each day he returned, teaching her to feel the ground through her hands, to see herself running in her mind. Isabella's eyes, once dulled by resignation, began to spark with belief. She laughed as she tossed twigs into patterns, mimicking steps she couldn't yet take. "Tomás, will I really walk?" she asked one afternoon, clutching Coco, her teddy bear. The boy's grin was a promise. "You're already starting to," he said, tapping her heart. Leandro watched from the terrace, his chest tightening. His daughter's joy was a melody he'd forgotten, but doubt gnawed at him. Was this hope real or a cruel illusion spun by a child's imagination? As days turned to weeks, Leandro's conflict deepened. He hired investigators to dig into Tomas's past, unable to trust a boy who seemed too good to be true. The truth, when it came, hit like a thunderbolt. Tomas wasn't just a street orphan. He was a survivor of a factory explosion 3 years ago, one linked to a subsidiary of Leandro's company. The accident had claimed his parents and left Tomas with scars hidden beneath his tattered shirt. He'd been a boy with dreams of his own, shattered by a tragedy Leandro's wealth had indirectly caused. The millionaire's guilt surged, a tidal wave threatening to drown him. Why would this boy help his daughter, knowing the pain his empire had inflicted? Yet Tomas never spoke of it, his focus solely on Isabella's smile, his small hands guiding her toward hope. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Isabella gripped the stone Tomas had given her and whispered, "I felt something today, Papa," like my legs were waking up. Leandro's heart soared, then plummeted. He confronted Tomas under the fading light. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, voice thick with shame. "After what my company did to you." Tomas met his gaze, unflinching. "Because she deserves to walk," he said simply. "And because I know what it's like to lose everything." In that moment, Leandro saw not a beggar, but a mirror of his own pain and a courage he'd never known. The boy's forgiveness, unspoken but profound, cracked the walls around his heart, pulling them deeper into a journey where hope and redemption intertwined. The jacaranda trees in Leandro's garden seemed to bloom brighter as Isabella's spirit rekindled. Tomas's daily visits had become a ritual, each one a step toward a miracle no one dared name. One crisp morning, as he guided her through another visualization, Isabella's fingers tightened around the riverstone. "Tomas," she whispered, eyes wide, "I felt something." Her toes, still for so long, twitched faintly, a tremor of life that sent a gasp through the air. Leandro, watching from the garden's edge, dropped his coffee cup, the porcelain shattering unnoticed. He rushed to her side, kneeling as Isabella's legs stirred again, a delicate dance of muscle waking from a long sleep. It was no sprint, no leap, just a flicker of movement. But to Leandro, it was the world remade. Tears blurred his vision as he held his daughter's face, her smile a sunrise after an endless night. Tomas, ever calm, nodded as if he'd expected this all along. "Keep dreaming, señorita," he said, placing a new twig in her hand. "Your legs are listening." The next week, with Tomas and Leandro steadying her, Isabella gripped the arms of her wheelchair and tried to stand. Her knees wobbled, her small frame trembling with effort, but for a fleeting moment she rose, her feet kissing the earth. She collapsed back, laughing through tears, and Leandro caught her, his heart pounding with a hope he hadn't dared to feel. Isabella's progress, fragile but real, wove a thread of belief through their lives, binding them to the boy who had sparked it all. Yet the world outside their garden was not so kind. Leandro's staff whispered behind closed doors, their disdain for the barefoot boy palpable. "He's a beggar, señor," his housekeeper hissed. "He doesn't belong in this house." Society's elite, once Leandro's allies, scoffed at the idea of a street child holding such sway. "You're a fool to trust him," a business partner sneered at a gala. But Leandro, his heart anchored to Isabella's growing strength, stood firm. "Tomas is my daughter's hope," he declared, his voice a shield. He invited Tomas to stay in a guest room, ignoring the gasps of his staff. The boy, Isabella, and Leandro became an unlikely trio, sharing meals under the stars, their laughter drowning out the world's judgment. Isabella called Tomas her brother, and Leandro, once a fortress of solitude, felt his walls crumble in their warmth. Tomas's selflessness shone like a beacon, despite the scars of his past. Losing his family to an explosion tied to Leandro's company, he harbored no bitterness. When Leandro, racked with guilt, offered him money, a home, anything, Tomas shook his head. "I don't want your gold, senor," he said softly. "I want her to run again." His only desire was to give Isabella the hope he'd forged from his own shattered dreams, a hope built from nights under bridges and days dodging cruelty. Leandro marveled at the boy's heart, so vast it held no room for revenge. One evening, as they watched Isabella trace patterns with twigs, Tomas shared a quiet truth. "When I lost everything, I learned to find strength in giving it back to others." His words wove them closer, a family born not of blood but of shared courage. As Isabella's legs grew stronger, so did their bond, a testament to a boy who chose healing over hate, pulling them toward a horizon where miracles felt possible. The garden, bathed in the golden glow of late afternoon, held its breath as Isabella gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Tomas knelt beside her, his river stone in her hand, his voice a steady anchor. "You're stronger than you know, señorita," he said, his eyes bright with unshakable faith. Leandro stood a few steps away, his heart a drumbeat of hope and fear. Isabella's face tightened with determination, her small frame trembling as she pushed upward. For a moment time stopped, then her feet found the earth. She stood, wobbling for 3 fleeting seconds, her legs shaking but defiant. A gasp escaped her lips, half laugh, half sob, as she sank back into the chair. Leandro's tears fell freely, his knees buckling as he rushed to her, enveloping her in his arms. It wasn't a marathon, not even a step, but those 3 seconds were a monument, a new beginning carved from years of despair. Isabella's smile, wide and unbroken, lit the garden brighter than the sun. Leandro, once a man who measured life in contracts and conquests, felt his world shift beneath him. The millionaire who had built an empire to shield his guilt now stood exposed, his heart cracked open by a boy's belief and a girl's courage. He looked at Tomas, who cheered Isabella with a grin that held no trace of the pain he'd endured. Leandro had spent years trying to buy miracles, but it was Tomas's faith, forged in loss, unshaken by hardship, that had sparked this moment. "I was wrong about you," Leandro admitted later, his voice thick as they sat under the jacaranda trees. "You gave me back my daughter, but you gave me something more, hope." Tomas shrugged, his bare feet swinging. "Hope's free, senor," he said simply, and Leandro laughed, a sound reborn from a heart learning to trust again. That night, as stars blinked above the estate, Leandro made a choice that felt as inevitable as breathing. He called Tomas to his study, where Isabella waited, clutching Coco, her teddy bear. "Tomas," Leandro began, his voice steady but soft, "you've given us a miracle. Now let us give you a home." He slid adoption papers across the desk, his eyes searching the boys. Tomas froze, his tough exterior cracking as tears welled. "You mean I'd be your son?" he whispered. Isabella wheeled forward, grabbing his hand. "My brother," she said fiercely. In that moment, an accident that had torn Tomas's family apart years ago, tied to Leandro's company, found redemption. Leandro signed the papers, his hand trembling, and pulled Tomas into a hug, the boy's small frame fitting perfectly against his own. A new family was born, not to erase the past, but to heal its wounds with love. As they stood together, Leandro looked at his children, Isabella, whose legs grew stronger each day, and Tomas, whose heart had carried them all. The journey wasn't over, but it had taught them a truth that echoed beyond their garden. Sometimes the greatest miracle isn't a cure or a fortune. It's a heart that dares to believe when all seems lost. Their story, woven from pain and promise, was a testament to second chances, a reminder that faith, no matter how small, can move mountains. So share this tale with someone you love, subscribe to witness more miracles, and let's carry this hope forward together. In a world that often feels heavy, where despair can eclipse dreams, this story reminds us of a simple truth. One small act of faith can ignite a miracle. Tomas, a boy with nothing but a heart full of hope, didn't just help Isabella stand. He lifted a family from the ashes of guilt and grief. Leandro, once blinded by wealth, found redemption in a child's courage. And Isabella, whose legs stirred after years of stillness, showed us that belief can awaken what seems lost. Their journey whispers to us all. You don't need riches or power to change a life. Just a spark of kindness, a moment of trust. You too can be someone's Tomas, offering hope where it's needed most. So let this story ripple outward. Share it with a friend, a loved one, or even a stranger who needs to believe again. Post it, text it, talk about it. Let it inspire someone to take a chance on faith, on love, on a new beginning. Every share is a seed, planting hope in hearts you may never meet. Subscribe now to join this journey of miracles where stories like these remind us of the beauty in second chances. Together we can keep this light burning, proving that even the smallest gesture can rewrite someone's story. As the screen fades, the garden glows under twilight. Isabella stands, her legs trembling but steady, her hand clutching the river stone. Tomas, her brother now, beams beside her, his barefoot grin a testament to resilience. Leandro watches, his eyes soft with pride, a father reborn through love. The words appear, simple yet profound. It begins with faith. It's completed with love. This image, this truth, lingers like a heartbeat, urging you to carry their story forward. Share it today, and let's make hope contagious.